I'm about to spend the next couple months traveling for bird photography workshops. So today, I'm showing you everything I bring for my bird photography travels in 2026. Let's get into it. Let's start with the bag itself. I've been using the Gura Gear Koboko 22 liter for about 4 years now, and I love this thing. I am not sponsored by them, but years ago they did send me one to test out, and I ended up using it so much that I literally wore the zippers right off of it. I sent them photos of what happened, and I put parchment paper on my window to kind of reduce the light, and it fell. And because of their warranty, they actually sent me a replacement bag, and they had awesome customer service. So at this point, I really have no reason to use anything else. One concern I've seen online is people talking about the weight distribution. Personally, I haven't found it any issue. Most of the time I'm only carrying it fully loaded through airports. Once I get where I'm staying, I unload most of the gear anyway and just keep the essentials inside. And if one side feels heavier, I just throw my water bottle on the other side and move on. This is because the bag isn't just one big pocket, it's two. It's one on the left, one on the right. So it's divided. So it seems like it can be easy to overload one side. For cameras, I travel with two bodies, a Nikon Z8 and a Nikon Z6 III. The Z8 is my dedicated bird photography camera. Its only job is to capture birds. The way I have this camera set up is completely built around fast wildlife photography. My autofocus settings, buttons, custom modes, everything is designed so I'm always ready for bird action. I actually made an entire video on how to set up my Nikon Z8 for bird photography, and if you want to check that out, I'll link it above. Now, my Z6 III has a very different role. This is my everything else camera. Landscapes, portraits, behind the scenes videos, YouTube content, travel shots, and it also acts as my backup body in case something ever happens to my Z8. I'm actually filming this video with the Z6 III right now. So with this setup, I basically have one camera dedicated to birds and another camera dedicated to everything else. The main reason I chose the Z8 over something like the Z9 is honestly because of the size and weight. I travel a lot and I only like traveling with this bag. I don't want Pelican cases, I don't want checked camera gear because that just scares me. And I definitely don't trust airlines with thousands of dollars worth of my equipment. So for me, smaller and lighter wins every time. For lenses, my main bird photography lens is the Nikon 180 to 600 millimeter. This lens basically lives on my Z8 and very rarely comes off. I absolutely love this lens because it's relatively compact for what it is. It's versatile, and compared to super telephoto primes, it's very affordable. I've used lenses like the 400 2.8 and the 800 6.3, and they're incredible. But for how I personally travel, they're just too big. The only other lens I've seriously considered is the Nikon 600 PF because of how lightweight it is. But for my workshops where we're often photographing from boats, and the versatility of the 180 to 600 is just perfect for what I do. Now my second lens is the Nikon 24 to 120 millimeter, and this lens lives on my Nikon Z6 III. It's what I'm filming on right now. This is one of my favorite lenses ever, just because it does so many things. Landscapes, environmental wildlife shots, portraits, video work, travel moments. It covers so much. If this was my setup forever, the Z8 with the 180 to 600 and the Z6 III with the 24 to 120, I'd be perfectly happy. Birds are covered, everything else is covered. Simple. Now last year, I did add one more lens to the kit, and that was the Nikon 70 to 200 f2.8. I mostly picked up this lens for seabirds in low light conditions. This year, I'm running multiple back-to-back workshops in Newfoundland, and we photograph puffins and gannets a lot during sunrise and sunsets. Sometimes those birds get extremely close. I wanted something wider that also performs really well in low light. It definitely doesn't come out every day, but when it does, it's a lot of fun. For behind the scenes content and the odd adventure thing that I do pack the DJI Osmo Action 5. I do love filming with the action cameras because they're just so simple and low profile. People barely notice them, they're easy to carry, and I can quickly capture moments without dragging out a whole giant camera setup. I don't really enjoy filming in the field content with my Z8 or Z6 III. It's just a pain pulling it all out and using it. So having a tiny action camera with me at times has been a huge improvement for both YouTube and social media content. I also bring extra batteries for it and a little tripod for it. For audio, I use the Hollyland Lark M2 microphone system. I watched a bunch of reviews before buying it, and it just seemed very similar to the DJI mic setups, just without the giant price tag. I've been super happy with it. The audio sounds good. I haven't had viewers complain about the sound quality since switching to it, and it performs surprisingly well in the wind. For the price, I think it's awesome. Highly recommend it. I'm using it right now. Now, this stuff is extremely important. I bring lots of extra batteries, memory cards, and 2 SSDs with me when I travel. Keep extra batteries and memory cards in your pockets, not buried in your bag. I've missed shots so many times because I had to dig through my backpack while birds are flying around. I keep all of this inside this random hardshell case that my wife had lying around the house. I don't know what it originally belongs to. You don't need to buy any fancy branded accessory stuff. Just get something protective that works and throw them in there. But make sure it is protective. It's hard because these are your memories. Now, the reason I carry the 2 SSDs is because of a saying I heard years ago: 1 is none and 2 is 1. Meaning, if you only have 1 backup, you basically have no backup. Every single night on trips, I back up my photos into both SSDs. One stays with me and the other stays inside my bag. The reason I separate them is because if something gets stolen while traveling, it's probably going to be the camera bag. And while losing the camera gear would absolutely suck and be totally devastating, the gear is replaceable. Your photos and memories are not. For my SSDs, I use a Samsung T9 Shield 4TB and a Samsung T7 Shield 1TB. I also bring lots of battery chargers with me as well. I also bring my laptop on most trips, mainly for editing photos and videos on the go, teaching during workshops, and transferring files onto those SSDs. Now, if you're only traveling for a week or less and you have enough memory cards, you can probably leave your laptop at home. But this year, I'll be in Newfoundland for close to 2 months running workshops, so for me, it's definitely necessary. I keep filters very simple. The only filter I really travel with is a variable ND filter. That's mainly for video work or occasional long exposure shots. Other than that, I don't really use filters much for bird photography. For accessories, I mainly bring cleaning supplies: a blower, brush, microfiber cloths, lens wipes. I also bring 2 camera straps, one longer strap for my Z8 and 180 to 600 setup, and then a smaller hand strap for my Z6 III and 24 to 120. For travel, I use a cheap K&F concept tripod, and it's not a very good tripod. It's lightweight, affordable, and mainly used for recording myself. I definitely wouldn't trust it in crazy conditions, and I wouldn't walk too far away from it with expensive gear mounted on it. Someone gave me great advice years ago and said, do you really want to trust $5,000 worth of equipment on a $60 tripod? And I just thought when I heard that, fair point. But for travel, I like this tripod because it's light, cheap, and it fits easily into the side of my bag. Now, on rare occasions, I'll bring my Gitzo tripod and Wimberley head setup, but it's a much larger system and usually requires additional carry-on space. That's a whole different setup for a whole other video. Would you like me to make a flight video on how I fly with all this gear? Let me know in the comments. And that's my complete bird photography travel setup for 2026. If you want help with settings and getting sharper bird photos, I have a free bird photography settings cheat sheet ebook linked down in the description below. It'll also get you onto my email list where every week I share bird photography tips, behind the scenes stories, and early access to upcoming workshops. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.